Welcome to the Go Legal Yourself podcast. I'm your host and legal friend, attorney Kelly Bagla, the queen of business law. Today, I have the ultimate pleasure of interviewing John Biethan. He is the president of imaginepodcasting.com. And today's title of this episode is How to Love Your Podcast Producer. Super excited to have you on the show, John. Welcome.
Well, thanks, Kelly, for having me. And why in the world would you title the episode that? How to Love Your Podcast Producer?
Because I can't wait to share with everyone how much I love you and where we started
Thank you.
from and where we are going, right? This is a journey. This has been such an exciting journey,
It
John.
is.
And I have to share that I haven't come across any other podcast producer that can even hold a candle to you. And I'm not just saying that because you produce GoLegalYourself.com. I'm
I know.
saying it because it's true.
Oh, thanks, Kelly.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We work very hard at it. And now we have a team of 12 people, which means there's just a lot, and you spent some time with our True Voice Method coach, Peggy Lebo, right? So how was that?
Angel. What an angel. Clearly we've done a podcast with Peggy. In the show notes we're going to link it. We're going to link
Yeah.
that podcast right to Peggy because people have to listen to it if they haven't already. Incredible. And you're just growing too. But before we get into it, because I really want to get into it with you, do you have an attorney joke to share with us?
Yes. I have like 5 or 6 here.
Lay it on us.
Okay, here we go. These are the one-liners, first of all. So here we go. How does an attorney sleep? Well, first he lies on one side, then he lies on the other.
I love that one.
Have you heard it, Kelly?
I have. It's one of my favorites.
Okay, what's black and brown and looks good on a lawyer?
What's that?
A Doberman Pinscher.
Oh, now you're getting into territory of what I really love. Dogs.
Right, your dogs.
Nice.
So what does a lawyer get when you give him Viagra?
What?
Taller. Okay.
Yes.
What's the difference between a lawyer and a jellyfish?
What is the difference?
One is a spineless, poisonous blob. The other is a form of sea life.
Exactly.
Have you heard that one?
I haven't, no.
Okay, good.
Wow, look at you sharing something new with me.
Yeah, so this one I think you really like. A man went to a lawyer and asked what his fee was. $100 for 3 questions, answered the lawyer. Isn't that a little steep, said the man. Yes, said the lawyer. Now, what's your 3rd question?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Clearly, we all love lawyers, right, John? Clearly.
I love you. I do love lawyers, actually. I love attorneys, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. Yeah, go ahead.
Amidst of all the lawyers that we have here in the US, there's definitely some fine lawyers that stand out. And yes, we respect the profession, and especially when you have the best interest of your clients at heart, right? And not your pocketbook. So
And that would be you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So I have one more.
Yes. Oh, share.
Okay, this is a long one, but it's a good one. An attorney was working late one night at his office when suddenly Satan appeared before him. The devil made him an offer. I will make it so you win every case that you try for the rest of your life. Your clients will worship you. Your colleagues will be in awe, and you will make enormous amounts of money. But in return, you must give me your soul, your wife's soul, the souls of your children, your parents, grandparents, and those of all of your friends. The lawyer thought about it for a moment, then asked, but what's the catch?
Exactly. Oh, that was a good one. That was a good one.
We wanted to insert at this point for those of you that are listening and have a good lawyer joke, better than whatever we just said, if you go to golegalyourselfpodcast.com, there's a blue button down on the bottom right. Leave us your best joke or jokes, and you'll have to put in your name and email address. And for the first person that does this with a good joke, then Kelly, what are you going to do?
I am going to mail them a signed copy of my best-selling book, Go Legal Yourself, second edition.
Yes. The second edition is like quite the improvement to the first, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Plus, it comes with bonuses, right? So it comes with a website that you can access and download templates, like real templates that lawyers use. For example, a business plan template, that in itself costs hundreds of dollars. Plus, it comes with other checklists of must-have contracts, especially for companies that are starting and growing. And I'm so proud of this book. I've gotten such great feedback from it, John. It truly is a straightforward Bible to how to start, run, and grow your business the right way.
Yeah, nice.
Yes. Excellent. So now you know why I titled the show How to Love Your Podcast Producer, because look what you just did. You're bringing more traffic, right? You're actually getting people to interact with us. And in fact, we do have quite a bit of people interacting with us. They send me an email. You can contact me directly, or you can contact me directly through the show. Make sure you download the app or listen to your media. You can listen to the show wherever you get your media from, right, John?
Oh yeah, wherever you get your audio. It was like,
Audio, yes.
yeah, three months ago, a little bit longer, Amazon, basically made podcasts available everywhere on their platforms. And, it's continued to grow that way. So it's really just wherever you get your audio. And the other thing I should say is that Apple, with the most recent upgrade to 14, iOS 14, I think it is that they have removed the subscribe button and it now says follow, because people were kind of misunderstanding that, well, if I subscribe, I got to pay something. So no. So it's now follow.
Follow. There you go. There's another reason why you should love your podcast producer, because he makes your life very, very easy by staying on the cutting edge of what's happening. Talking about cutting edge, John, you were into podcasting when the name podcasting wasn't even a thing.
Right.
Share with us your background story, and so people will understand why I love you so much.
Well, thank you. Well, I am a creative. I've worked in tech for quite a long time. It was 2004, and I was actually an outside consultant, IT consultant for Coca-Cola in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And one day I'm sitting in front of my computer, in front of, I probably think, the Netscape browser. Back then, that was the browser of choice. And what I saw on the screen sort of looked like one, if you've seen the Matrix code, it sort of looked like that. And I noticed there was a little MP3 file reference, a reference to someplace to get an MP3. And I tracked it down, and it was Dave Weiner, one of the creators of podcasting, having breakfast in a cafe in Florida with a friend of his. And I kind of went, what is this? And so I discovered it was basically the RSS2 specification. And that was 2004. And it was 2005. And I started really getting into it. I bought equipment and everything else. But it was 2005, the same year in August, when Steve Jobs announced it as podcasting, that I was at a party and I met this guy, Jeffrey Milburn, an artist, and he had an art form called Omni Art. And this is gorgeous, beautiful, large installations that hang off walls. And it was just really pretty wild. And anyway, he told me the story about how he was in New York City at a New Year's Eve party one year, and everybody there was doing sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Except for Jeffrey, who found himself sitting on a couch next to a guy named Andy Warhol. Now, Andy Warhol, for those of you that don't know who he is, started pop art, really. So that was the big thing there. But Andy really believed that Jeffrey's art form was possibly the next big thing. So they started working together and they started making art gifts for each other. Anyway, Andy went in for the hospital for some sort of exploratory surgery of some sort, and he ended up dying, leaving Jeffrey a bit stranded. And Jeffrey took it to Madonna, took it to Sting and people like that, but nobody really was interested. And it was a fantastic story. So that was the reason I actually started producing podcasts. So we produced a podcast called the Omni Art Salon, which Jeffrey, I taught him how to do it. So he continues to do it today. And last time I talked with Jeffrey, which was probably a good year ago, he'd have like 500 to 750,000 downloads on his show.
Wow.
So then there was Upaya Zen Center created by Roshi Joan Halifax. She was an anthropologist, became a Buddhist, and ended up creating Upaya Zen Center. And they had a Dharma talk on Wednesday nights, and somebody suggested I should actually talk to them. So we started the Upaya Zen Wednesday night Dharma talks, which actually ended up being distributed in prisons for the prison programs. So you can tell me to shut up now, or I'll keep going. It's totally up to you, Kelly.
Well, it's extremely interesting because, again, you were doing podcasting when nobody knew what it was. When did it start becoming more popular? Around what year?
Well, the fact is that podcasting has had a steady growth since about 2005 of about 15% per year. Now, when you take 2005 and, let's just say it was 16 years ago, that the math doesn't quite work out. But to answer the question, a lot of people think that the Serial episodes, I don't know if you've heard of Serial, but and NPR and people like that's when it became really popular. And on one level, yes, there was a lot more awareness that came to it. But really, when it comes to downloads, it was people like Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan show, that really got a lot of people's attention. He was doing a daily show, and he was doing advertising on it, and it was very, very entertaining. So I think it was sometime around 2013, 2014, where things really started to move in the right direction. And of course, with the pandemic, there was a whole lot of people that found themselves thinking that for a long time, they wanted to do a podcast, and now found themselves with time to do so.
Why would anyone want to have a podcast, John? I know it's a loaded question, but you are the perfect person to ask this question of why would anyone want a podcast? And then I have follow-up questions.
I'm sure you do. You're an attorney. You better. Do you have a gavel there? No, I'm probably not.
I have a crown since I am the queen of business.
You do.
So I certainly have a crown here.
All right. So the number one reason, this is what I would say. I originally started Imagine Podcasting in July 2020 and kind of led with this, which is that we are hired by people that keep putting off starting their podcast because it seems complicated and expensive.
But it does to most people, because
it's confusing.
It's very confusing. Plus, it's, oh my God, it's all technology based. I don't know how to do this. How long is it going to take? How expensive is it? Who do I need to hire? All of these questions come into people's minds.
Right. The second part of what we would say is, and what they really want, is to start a profitable podcast and get their brand and message out there in a bigger way. But I will tell you this, I've boiled it down to make it even simpler. All that is true. So I would say podcasting is not simple, but it's very confusing for most people. There's a lot of people that started podcasting less than a year ago now teaching people how to do podcasting, and really not enough experience,
That's like someone passing the bar and putting their shingle out and saying, "Hey, we practice law now."
Yeah. we're novices, but we're practicing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So here's how I boiled it down to directly answer your question. We help businesses eliminate competition by elevating their brand and message to be heard. The second part of that is, and which is really true, is that over time, podcasting builds long lasting, trusted relationships. And anybody that knows anything about business knows that it's all about relationships. So in podcasting, you don't have the distractions of screens popping up or any of that stuff at all. You know, you can listen with earbuds or not while you're cooking breakfast, like I did this morning, or going on a walk, like I did this morning, or at the gym, or, just, and it's one on one. The people, Kelly, that are listening to this episode right now are listening to it, and we are not like broadcasting. There's a lot of people listening, but not at the same time. So it's a one-on-one, very intimate media. And I also tell people, I have an excellent creative director, and he and his wife actually were responsible for the rebrand of the Sci-Fi Channel a couple of years ago. So they know how to tell a story. And Sam and I wrote a single page that is titled Why Podcast. And you can actually get that by going to imaginepodcasting.com. And on the top left in the menu, you'll see a link to Why We Podcast. So it's a real simple document. It talks about it from the listener's perspective and a business perspective. So I encourage people to go get it. It really explains it quite well.
Perfect. Perfect. Now, as far as podcasting, I see it, John, as a tool. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very sharp, cutting edge tool to promote one's business, or to
Mm-hmm.
promote one's brand, or to
Mm-hmm.
promote one's individual, like a personality, right? So you have personality brands, and then you got product or service brands as well. So people that are famous out there, celebrities, people that are authors of well-known books, each and every one of them has some sort of podcast, and this is how
Mm-hmm.
they interact with, not just nationally, right, or domestically, but this is international. The reach is huge. So why
Yes.
wouldn't anyone podcast?
Like I said, confused mostly. But here's the thing. One thing I want to address about that, which is we have a client. We're releasing her podcast at the end of May here, and we're in 2021. Her name is Elena Armillo. She is an executive leadership coach. She is trained by Accomplishment Coaching, which is a great organization. She is in such demand, and she can't possibly be everywhere, that she started the podcast so that she could share herself more with the people that she couldn't normally talk with. So that's
Brilliant.
it. So it's podcasting solves problems in many, many, many different ways. Like for you, you are the queen of business law. But more important in my mind is that you are a kind of person that I want not only legally, business in my corner, but somebody that I just cherish as a real deep friendship. You are freaking awesome at relationship. Okay. And you're like, I've never seen an attorney like you before. I've worked with several. I used to help several attorneys, but you're stellar. So for you, people listen to the podcast and they're going to get a sense for who you are as a person. And then when the dogs bark, and then
You mean
right?
the associates? You mean my
I'm
associates?
sorry, the
My
associates.
four-footed they work really hard in the law office, John.
I am sure they do. But as you remember in the beginning, it's like you kind of like brushed it off. I said, no, 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 no. What you want to do is let people know that you have associates, that you have these dogs. Because what
Exactly.
happens in that is that people will be listening to you who have dogs and love dogs. And then what happens? That you have a kind of rapport with them that had you not even mentioned your associates, that you wouldn't normally have. So it's really important to be yourself.
First of all, I'm very humbled by the words that you just shared with me. Thank you. I'm not normally a person that gets humbled, John. just just ask you or my husband, right? Just ask him. The other word that's not in my vocabulary is modesty.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we definitely have to do a podcast on dogs, like law firm
Yes.
associates slash dogs. We have to. Now, going back to the interaction, right? The experience that one gets from
Mhm.
listening to a podcast. Like you just said, it is intimate. I also we release sidebars
Yes.
once every other week, and I've started calling. I've started talking to the individual directly, and since it is a legal show where we share straightforward legal tips, I
Mhm.
I call them my legal beagles, right? So now I address the individual rather than the audience. That's so impersonal.
Right.
And again, this is another reason why I love my podcast producer, because
Thank you.
the reason, John, anyone would want to work with you is I don't have enough fingers to count why, but I'm going to say the top reasons why. One is you were ahead of podcasting before it was even a thing, which gives that in itself huge credibility. The other reason is you're on the cutting edge of what people want. What do they want to listen to? If I was listening to a podcast and somebody said to me, "And you are my wonderful audience," I feel like I'm sitting in a massive conference room in front of a speaker. I don't want that experience. I want someone to talk to me directly. And
Mhm.
you trained me. You trained me how to speak to the individual. So I
Mhm.
say to them, welcome you, my legal beagle. I'm getting goosies just saying that
Yeah,
because
I
it's
know.
that intimacy, right?
Yeah.
And then you make life so easy. You automate things that really reduces the stress level, if you will, on a podcaster. And the list goes on and on, John. But
No, thanks.
as far as working with you, what type of client would be ideal to work with you?
Okay. So I have a particular passion because of for 14 years. Um, Let me just say, I have a particular passion for working with women. And the reason is 14 years ago, I'm not sure I want to tell the long story, but I became aware of how women were essentially displaced and disrespected through the stories that were told, the ancient stories that were told. Okay. And also, I should say that I was very close to my mother, had this real strong intuitive connection. And so when it comes to the masculine and the feminine and all that stuff, I'm pretty well balanced. Okay. So my ideal client is really any business that wants to eliminate competition or, yeah, eliminate competition. I didn't say the competition, I said competition by elevating their brand and message to be heard. That competition could be with yourself because there's a lot of people going crazy about social media and Instagram and all this other stuff. But honest to God, you can sit in the morning at 6 o'clock with a cup of coffee in your bathrobe and turn on
and
the
and
recorder
fluffy slippers.
and fluffy slippers with, I'm sure, little dog noses on them, right, Kelly?
Exactly. Or just have a dog sit on your toes, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
And record your episodes, send them to us, and we just like do all the rest. So specifically, the best ideal client for us is somebody that is coachable, because we have a new client that we talked to yesterday that kind of, yeah, we've done some episodes. We're talking about this. The biggest mistake people make is talking about their business. What they really need to talk about is something that they are passionate about that may be a part of their business. So, as an example, really good example, Starbucks years ago started a podcast, and they talked about was their business, and it fell flat on its face. A couple of years later, Trader Joe's launched a podcast. And what did they talk about? All the people that make Trader Joe's possible. People all over the world, some of the employees, they told stories. Okay. So, the ideal client is somebody that, like I said before, that wants to eliminate competition and elevate their brand and message to be heard in storytelling. So we assist in all of that. So we have a really great process for that. And there's like 12 people on the team, and we have a podcast brand discovery process, and then we have an excellent graphic brand designer, and then we have the voice coach, Peggy, and there's other people on the team, including a podcast strategist that is really an editor, but he's exceptionally good at crafting the podcast in terms of making it sound better, not just technically, but rearranging content and things like that. So, it's a production on our end, but it's
That's
all
another reason, John. Sorry, I just had to interject.
sure.
Right? That's another reason why someone that is considering, right, even if it's a thought in the back of the mind, oh, should I podcast? Ask yourself, should I podcast? If you ask yourself that question, that's the moment you reach out to John. Again, John has a full service in house that helps you from creating the name, the branding that goes behind it, the storytelling that goes behind it, the production. Oh my goodness, the production, right? There's just no way that you can sit there and do this all by yourself. There's just no way. So you have a full service that
Mhm.
really does cater to someone that's thinking, should I have a podcast? That's the moment you call John.
Mhm. So let me say, Kelly, like right now for you, you schedule your guests. We're probably changing, getting off Zoom, going to actually using StreamYard, what we're doing right now. Quality is much higher. But, after that, we just go pick up the files and produce it. So all you got to do is do the scheduling, send that new link for the media release, which
Yes.
asks them for their professional photo and a few other things, and just have fun on your podcast, with the fabulous people, and that's it. But let me tell you, I really want to answer the question for people to consider this. Some people think they got to have 1 million downloads. Some people think they have to have 10,000 downloads per episode, whatever it is. Let's just say you have a couple hundred downloads per episode, which is not rocking and rolling, but just ask yourself this question. And if you're doing a weekly podcast, when is the last time you were in front of a couple hundred people on a weekly basis? There's no driving, there's no hotels, there's none of that stuff at all. But you're in front of a couple hundred people every single week. And maybe it takes you an hour or two. That's it.
It's a no-brainer,
Kind of
John.
is,
It's
isn't it?
no, again, it's a tool. As technology has developed, it's making starting, growing, and running a business a lot more easier, right? You
Uh-huh.
cannot be a Jack or a Jill of all trades. You just can't be. And if you
Hmm.
are, that means you haven't truly found your passion, because I practice law, business law, exceptionally, right? I love what I do. It's a passion of mine, and that's what I do great. If you ask me to go build a fence, yeah, I could do a good job, which my husband and I did, right, during the pandemic shutdown last year. But it was fun. But am I passionate about it? No. Did I learn something? Yes. But what do I really, where do I bring value? Right. So
Yeah, exactly.
if you bring value to someone based on what you do. If you have information you want to share with the masses, if you want to get your voice out, that seems to be new now too, right?
Mhm.
It's especially with um, women in business, which is fantastic, right?
Mhm.
It's wonderful seeing women business owners just crushing it. And
Yep.
then they also want a voice. They probably thought they didn't have one before, like you said, 14 years ago, right? Women's voices weren't quite prominent. But now there's nothing stopping them, nothing at all. I'm sitting here in my office with my associates having a cup of coffee, not in my bathrobe, but having a conversation with you, someone that I love. So who wouldn't want to do this?
Mhm.
Going back to a really important question, John. What what are the ingredients that make up a successful podcast?
A successful podcast?
Yes.
Sure. Before I answer the question, I want to state personally myself, podcasting, and everybody I know that we help start podcasting say it's fun.
It's a lot of fun.
It's almost as fun as 4 feet in bed, if you know what I mean.
Well, hello.
Hello. No, that will not be
This
stricken
is
from
a
the
PG show.
Yeah, well, they have no idea what I'm talking about. So, what makes a successful show is, first of all, starting it, showing up, got to start. And a lot of people don't have a big budget start. And, the first couple episodes are terrible and stuff. That's going to happen. We reduce that risk quite a bit, actually. But what makes a really good podcast is really, really a consistent theme, a consistent brand for the podcast, storytelling that is interesting and valuable. There are podcasts that are really successful that are interview shows, kind of like what we're doing. And they're successful because they have just really great relationships with people like you do, and they're really, really interesting conversations. Like with you, it's like you just kind of blow out of the water the whole idea, the persona, what an attorney is. That's why we do the attorney jokes, right?
Right.
Yeah. So a successful show, consistency is really, really important. I think there's some imagery, the brand image, like your logo. It's like Rob Waltz, VP at Libsyn, said it's like one of the best he'd ever seen because it just stands out. So all those things kind of do make up for having a successful show. But what gets really right down to it, it's storytelling, it's valuable content, and sort of like that. And a lot of people ask, is there a sweet spot? Should it be 20 minutes? It really comes down to whatever. If the content's valuable, people will listen for hours and hours. You know, I think 30 minutes is kind of a nice sweet spot myself.
It is, because when people are out for a walk or they're driving from one meeting to another, usually they have about 30 minutes to spare in between. And they turn on to go legal yourself podcast.com, or they'll go to imaginepodcasting.com and listen to some of these shows. It's
Mm-hmm.
all about, again, promoting your brand. People recognize
Mm-hmm.
brands, right? That's how you're going to get in front of competition. Like you said, be consistent with your branding. Podcasting is a huge tool in your toolbox, if you will, for promoting your brand. And again, you're creating a relationship with someone that you haven't met. You're reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm here if you've got questions. I'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me,
Yeah.
email me, connect with me, and you one of the most important ingredients of having a successful podcast, John, is, again, loving your podcast producer. I cannot say that enough. I truly cannot, because, and it's not coming from a biased opinion because I love you. It's coming from truly an unbiased opinion and from a businesswoman, right? So I'm looking
Yeah.
at this from a business perspective.
Thank you.
And when you go out into the world, again, it's not just you in your little town anymore. Anyone can hear your podcast and your voice around the world. So when you step out into the world, you want to step out on your best foot. Otherwise, don't bother. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree. And so just, just out there, just imagine this. You now have a sense for who I am. You actually have some sort of a rapport with me. You may be thinking, well, I don't know what you're thinking, but
I'll share that with you offline.
if you have a podcast, yeah, exactly. So if you go to imaginepodcasting.com and schedule a 45-minute exploratory call and mentioned that I heard you on Kelly Bagla's Go Legal Yourself, well, then I'll know. We can sort of like dispense kind of with getting to know each other or maybe I want to get to know you a little bit. I'll certainly ask you questions, but you already have the advantage. And this is what, because you've heard me. And this is one of the thing that's powerful about podcasting. And I tell all of my hosts that have the guests, like Kelly, I send out an email to all the guests and say, here's a code. It's an embed code. Put this on your website so people can hear you on Kelly's podcast. And what that does is people get a chance to hear you in the interview. And once again, what it does is you now have some level of rapport with people. So when they pick up the phone to call you, they're calling you, they've already pre-qualified themselves because they've heard you.
There you go. And they can do this for themselves too. Anyone, would you say, anyone that has a passion for what they do and they want to share that passion with the world, all you have to do is go to imaginepodcasting.com, schedule your exploratory meeting with you. And what's the worst that could happen, right? What's the worst that could happen? The worst is that you've just missed out on a huge opportunity to promote yourself, to promote your business, to promote your passion. Let's put it that way, to promote your passion. When I first started podcasting, and John, I'm not going to even tell someone to go back and listen to episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right?
Oh, don't worry. They'll find it.
Exactly. Thank you for that.
They'll find it. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you. And trust me on this one. If I can come from episode 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to where we are now and having fun doing it, and anyone, and again, anyone that has a passion to share valuable information with the world, you can do this. You can do this, but you can do it with the right producer. That's what I did right from the beginning, John. I did it right. I hired you, and you have looked after me and Go Legal Yourself over the span of these years. I feel like I've known you for 500 years, really.
Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I do feel that old.
Could you imagine during the cave time years, right? How did they get their message out? If they wanted to send a note to a neighbor or someone across, to another cave or across the pond, how long did that message take? And plus, didn't it get distorted, right? Because when you share something with someone and say, can you share this with someone else? How much of that real message is that end person getting? Again, with podcasting, you're getting it straight from the mouth of the dog. Woof, woof.
What an excellent point.
Right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
that's a really good point.
Ask you, John, I have to ask you, when you are not producing podcasts, what do you do for fun?
Well, I love people. So
that clearly shows.
Oh, yeah, thanks. So a lot of times it'll be musical events. Last night I was at a friend's house in Vista, high up on a hill overlooking the valley, and we just sat there and drank a couple of bourbons. And it was just relaxing and just getting to know each other better and better. Chris Ryan Video Productions, and Chris is a really, really good friend. So it's always going to be about the music. When I'm not doing business and stuff, it's about the music. My partner Stephanie I'm in, Southern California, Carlsbad. She's in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We've been separated for 15 months by COVID drag. Well, we've both gotten our shots. And so pretty much all of my time is outside of business and work is doing something good for myself in terms of going for walks and hikes on the beach, listening to music. I start every morning listening to music, but I just can't wait to see Stephanie. So
Of
she's going to
course.
come down here and we're going to create, we ask, what do you want to create together? So we're going to explore that. So that's kind of what's on top regarding answering the question when I'm not working. It's taking care of myself, listening to music, and spending time with friends and developing relationships. I think when the pandemic happened, I wrote the phrase that connection and relationship is the vaccine against isolation.
Perfect.
And when I realized that, I just started picking up the phone, not texting, not emailing, but if I had their phone number, I called them. How are you doing? But you know what? I got to rewrite it to make sense after this pandemic's over because I still think it's important to make connection in relationship
It
to help.
always is. It always
Mm-hmm.
is. But
Mm-hmm.
so when Stephanie does come down to visit
Yes.
you, Brent and I are going to take you and Stephanie out to dinner.
Oh, awesome.
I know.
I will not have dinner and I will wait for it.
Absolutely. And that's another reason why you need to learn how to love your podcast producer, because
Mm-hmm.
you will take him out to dinner because he's doing such an incredible job for you.
Kelly, thank you. I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely. We've got some great restaurants that are reopening again, right? So I'm
Yes.
excited to explore those. But I don't want to end the episode with you, John. I want to continue for another 52 minutes, right? And I
Yeah,
know it
well,
hasn't been
I have
52
something in
minutes.
10. So,
I know. I know.
Kelly,
Yes.
there's a question you haven't asked me. And I really, this is about you actually. And the question is, I think it's like, had you had it to do it over, something you may have learned or something like this is, so it was back in, let me think, 1987, where I had some money and I started a software company. But God, I wish I had you in my vision then. Because I would have invested in myself to help myself by basically engaging in your services. That the whole the structure, the legal structure, and understanding the four legal cycles of the business is critical. And I didn't have anybody. I knew attorneys. I actually, did IT services for attorneys, but nobody had that. So had an opportunity to do something over, and I'm just telling people out there, if you're starting a business, if you're doing a startup, please contact Kelly and find out what's required to get started right, because it'll make a huge difference and keep your butt out of trouble, because trouble will find you.
It always does, especially when you're in business. It always does. Well, thank you for that, John. I think back then I was in nappies, but if I wasn't, I would have
You were in what ease?
nappies.
What's a nappy?
It's a diaper.
Oh my
Nappies.
God, really?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, you
I'm
just
running
dated
around in
me.
that.
I
Yeah,
just
I'm
dated
I'm not
myself.
that young.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people say, "Oh, back in 1987," I usually say, "Well, I wasn't even born then."
Right. Right.
Or when people say, "Oh, it was the year of 1632," then I usually say, "Oh, it was about 3 then."
Oh
But
gosh.
talking about relationships,
Uh-huh.
uh, some of some of my clients, right? And again, we live in San Diego, John, and San Diego is a huge, huge military county. It's a
Yep.
military city. We love our veterans. We love our active duty here. Absolutely. And my law firm actually provides sort of thank you military discounts when they start their businesses. And I had the pleasure of speaking with a military wife, And she was saying to me that, she wanted her husband to have a conversation with me, but she was prefacing it by saying, he's a colonel, Kelly, and he's rough on the edges, and he's going to tell you rather than ask you, right? And I was just sitting there with a smile thinking, oh, love it, absolutely love it, please introduce us. And so as soon as we were introduced, I thanked the colonel for his service. I said, thank you, colonel. Right there and then he melted, John. He melted.
He melted.
Yep, he wasn't expecting a thank you right out of the gate. And so I was just sharing with him the knowledge that I can bring to the table. And again, he just stepped back and said, Kelly, you're the expert here. I might be a colonel, but you're the expert here. Right? It goes to, how do you interact with people? It goes to, how do you create relationships? Because when it's all said and done, that's what people are going to remember, right? Memories and relationships. And Brent and I, we were talking just the other day about a book he was listening to, and it was on Stonewall Jackson.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
Stonewall Jackson. And so he was so intently listening to this, and he knew what was coming up. He knew that Stonewall had been shot by his own men accidentally, and he did eventually pass away. But the legacy that these great people left behind, John, my voice, thanks to you, is going to continue after I'm gone.
Yes.
The books that I've written are going to continue after I'm gone. If anybody wants to create a legacy, either for themselves or even for their children, right? Do you want to leave a legacy for your children so when they grow up, they can listen to what you as a mom or dad have to share with the world? Could you imagine the pride in their eyes?
Oh, yeah.
I want to end on a very, very, very positive note, which is, there is absolutely no reason for anyone to sit back and think, do I need to start a podcast? Or how do I start a podcast? Or should I start a podcast? Where you should begin is go to imaginepodcasting.com. Contact John directly. You're going to love him within the first 3 minutes. Guaranteed. And if they don't love you within the first 3 minutes, I have to give them a free book. So you better be sharp right from the beginning. And I know you will be, John.
Yeah. So there is a really good brand video on our homepage. I encourage people to watch it. I also, Kelly, want to remind people to get the second edition of Go Legal Yourself with all the bonuses that come with it, signed by Kelly. Go to golegalyourselfpodcast.com. There's a blue button on the bottom right. Yes, you're going to use your microphone, and leave us a really good attorney joke or two. And what we said is, the first person that leaves us a joke, we'll email you back to get your address, and Kelly will send you the signed copy of the book, right?
Absolutely. The other thing that John has done for my podcast and all the other podcasts that he has produced is, we are everywhere.
Well, that's
we are
exactly.
everywhere. We're syndicated everywhere, which is pretty incredible, John. Pretty incredible. Needless to say, what a fantastic service you provide and are providing. And it's so essential. I'm going to call you essential.
No. I have to change the name of my business, huh?
Essential podcasting, right? So John Essential Biethan, president of imaginepodcasting.com.
Thanks for having me on your show.
It was completely my pleasure. Do you have any parting words for us?
Yeah, I mean, this is what I tell people is just, you know what, we're still at a strange time, and be kind. You cannot possibly know what another person is going through in their life. Don't know.
There you go. There you go. Be kind and reach out to John and start your podcast. It's an incredible experience. You're going to thank me, actually. I'll tell you right now, you are going to call me up and you're going to say, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for having John and introducing us to John with imaginepodcasting.com. Pleasure was all mine, John. And do check out golegalyourself.com. Do it yourself legal protection, which helps you save money and gain peace of mind. I am attorney Kelly Bagla, the Queen of Business Law. It's been my pleasure being your host. Until next time, cheers to your success.